Nice to talk to you all. I'm Prat Moge, CEO of Promethium.ai. We are an early stage, fast growing startup that's solving very interesting problems at the intersection of enterprise data and AI. Our offering is called Instant Data Fabric, and it's an agentic platform that will allow you, your data teams, to essentially deliver self-service data at AI scale. What we've seen typically in the enterprises is that there's massive amounts of data in different data platforms. There's no single platform that holds all your data. So you may have, legacy platforms, you may have modern platforms like Snowflake and Databricks, cloud platforms, obviously applications like Salesforce, ServiceNow. And so the challenge for enterprises is when the business people want to be able to engage with their data, they want to be able to talk to that data, much like with ChatGPT. You can talk to public internet data. Enterprise, finance people, marketing people, revenue people want to be able to talk to their data. They want to be able to analyze that data, and they want to do it on the fly. They're no longer patient enough to wait for dashboards and reports. They want to engage in real time, near real time. And that's an unsolved problem today because the data is all over the place. It's hard to figure out where that data is. It's hard to talk to that data because that data, as turns out, is not nicely labeled, where you can figure out where's my revenue data and product data. And then the last piece is that today there's no engagement mechanism to that data because today it's all pipelines and batch. As I said, people want to engage with the data on the fly. So the Instant Data Fabric essentially is the first offering of its kind that brings access to that data, the context to that data, and then collaboration with that data to the business people through the data teams in a single offering. And so we are super excited as we've launched this offering to see how we are partnering with large companies to bring that instant insight essentially to the business. A natural question is with the Instant Data Fabric is how do you engage with the data? And we have a new agent, we call it the Mantra agent, that is just being released that will essentially sit on top of Instant Data Fabric, and it allows the data teams, typically it's a data analyst or a data engineer, sometimes it's a data product owner or an analytics engineer. Regardless, these are folks, sometimes it could even be a business analyst, but these are folks that have access to data. They want to be able to quickly create the answers to the questions that are coming from the business. And so this agent, the Mantra agent, will allow these data teams to go ask questions, much like you would ask any general English questions. And what it will do is translate those questions into actually data product. We call them data answers that come back by discovering the data, querying the data, bringing it back, constructing all of that answer. And then it's an answer that these data teams can then feed back to the business. So the agent allows you to do that. The agent also allows you to use your existing BI tools that can ask questions because, again, there are agents all over now. And so there are other agents like the BI agents could ask questions that can get routed to a Promethium where Mantra can then answer those questions. So again, the idea here is regardless of where you're sitting, which platform you're in, which tool you're in, maybe you're on Teams or Slack. The point is, regardless of where you are, if you had a question and you don't have access to data, the enterprise data, and you're doing analytics on that data, you can route these questions to the Promethium's agent that will then give you back the answer with accuracy and relevance and do it on the fly. As you can imagine, in any large enterprises with the data teams, they're struggling with the complexity of the data, figuring out how to manage that data, governance of that data, security and privacy of that data, controls on that data. And so with the Instant Data Fabric as the platform, the data teams essentially, it regulates the access to this data. So it's based on your role. So you're not allowed to get access to data that you don't have permission for. And so to a large extent, what Promethium's Instant Data Fabric does is it makes access to this data easy for more people but at the same time, it keeps the governance and control with the data teams. So in this enterprise world, you may have heard of things like data fabrics. You may have heard of things like data mesh. So in general, there's a lot of confusion on what's the right architecture to use. Promethium cleverly blends the right mix of these architectures. So it gives you the power of the fabric where you can instantly access all this data, but it also has the agility and the flexibility that of sort of the business being able to say, here's what I want. And so that essentially it has the flexibility and the agility of the mesh architecture combined with the instant access of the fabric. So it turns out that with these kind of architectures, and particularly adding this agent with context, now you can solve the relevance and accuracy problem. So that's the handholding that the platform takes care of. With Promethium, we've intentionally built Instant Data Fabric to be an open architecture that can integrate with any of your data platforms, whether it's Snowflake, Databricks, any of the cloud platforms, on-prem platforms, even legacy platforms like Teradata, for example, DB2. But on the other side, it also integrates with your catalogs, Calibra, Alation, Atlan, and then it can integrate with your BI tools, whether it's ThoughtSpot, Tableau, Power BI, and others, Looker. And the point basically being by integrating with what you have and by not changing your business process or your workflow, our view is that that's actually how you accelerate everybody. So there'll be lots of agents in this enterprise. With Promethium, the Prometheum's mantra agent essentially integrates with those agents either through MCP or through A2A. And the point is, regardless of how you ask for information, whether it's a human, whether it's a tool, whether it's an API call or an agent calling, we want to basically go meet those requests where they are. This is obviously the year of the agentic, lots of agentic platforms and architectures, and then obviously agents. And so we see a lot of interest this year on figuring out what kind of an agentic platform to adopt. How do you integrate this with all other agents and agentic platforms, particularly in the enterprise world today? The data management world moves slowly and the AI moves super fast. And so when you intersect those two worlds, there's like a collision where you got to figure out what's a real use case that you can take on and solve. Is this in supply chain? Is it in marketing? Is it in RevOps? Is it in finance? So we are seeing interesting trends where there's lots of POCs going on, and the data teams and the AI teams are essentially trying to figure out what is real, what is not. So beyond the hype and frenzy, basically there is a lot of pragmatic things on, if you're trying to do analytics, for example, am I going to get accurate, believable answers that I can actually make decisions on? How will these agents behave, right? How autonomous are they versus semi-autonomous agents? And what we've seen typically is that the successful enterprises are ones that are taking a very pragmatic approach. They're thinking about this as humans are always there. These agents and agentic platforms are assisting them and assisting them in their business process. So again, there'll be lots of POCs, but sort of we expect that the ones that will be successful are the ones that are meeting people where they are, because there's a lot of change management, obviously, but that's also a big part of this equation. As more and more access comes through AI, whether it's through agents or ad hoc questions, old constructs like pipelines and modern data stack don't work. So you need a new architecture and a new solution. Promethium's Instant Data Fabric, which is an agentic platform, solves this problem through an open architecture that brings access, context, collaboration all together so that the data teams can deliver self-service data for all these AI needs.